What's going on, everybody? Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Quisha King Show. I'm your host, Quisha King Benton. And we're keeping it going. We are looking at the Black church. There's a lot to look into. There is a lot to look into. But we don't shy away from it. We dive on in. We got to confront the things, all the things. William, thank you so much for becoming a member. Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. William says, with Quisha, I can hit the like button before I even start watching the show because I already know I'm going to like it. So going off of William, just go ahead and smack that like button and share this video out if you have not already. Please do. Hi, Megan. Hello. Thanks for being here. Hi, Karen. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Put some gold hearts in the chat for your girl. Thanks, Megs. Megan says, I agree with William. I do too. Okay, I have to say this because if I don't, it's going to annoy me. Okay, so I have like super crazy allergies, right? And I recently, this is when I got into my 40s, a lot of stuff started happening that I wasn't accustomed to. And like bad allergies was one of them. My eyes itchy and just like watery red, and I get like these eczema things. I also, this is a weird thing, I get these dark spots on my lip and I'm super subconscious about it. If you go back to old like videos, you won't see any, and then all of a sudden you'll see like a flare up. And so it's like an eczema thing, and I see it on my, it just drives me nuts. So if you see me like always putting on, that's what that is. And just so y'all know, like, it's not vanity, or maybe it is, but I see it and it's just like, it annoys me. It really can't. Yes, it is so bad. And I never had this, all this eczema stuff, just like all of it. This is new. Okay. Is new in the last like 2023. So I've never had any of this. So it surprisingly, this is like better. I have been covered. Like this has been covered, but it pops up. It's like weird sometime. Like at first I had just like a little spot on my lip, and I had like a dark line under here, and then I had like just one little dot. But this time it's just it's not good. I don't like it, and I really wanted to go away, but I'm going to see the dermatologist because I've had it anyway. Y'all, look, we got some problems. Not that you didn't know that, but the Black church, the more I read, the more I'm like, what in the world? Like, what? It is such a slap in the face to like real Christianity. When you go back and listen to these people, the James Cone, we talked about him. It's sick, like what these people have done to the Christian witness, in the quote unquote Black community. These people literally went in with an agenda. It's really crazy. Megan says, Quisha, it's probably a histamine response. I have lots of random skin conditions too. My sister's a nurse, and so she was trying to explain that to me, like what histamine is and how all that works, trying to help me work this out. So I think that's what she said too. I do know it's an eczema thing, because anytime I get like, I itch in certain spots, like my neck or here, or my, like the bends in my elbow, I look out for my lip because it's like once that starts itching and stuff, it's like I know I'm gonna get the thing. I would rather the eczema everywhere else, but on my lip, I'm like, for a person that talks, it's like, dang, it's like really. Anyway, it'll be all right. Girl, it sounds weird, but use athlete's foot cream on the skin, and I even do it on my lips for my random skin conditions, and that helps more than any. Now, I am all about trying things, especially things that will, over the counter, that I don't have to be prescribed something, because I just prefer more natural things. I'm always looking for the natural remedy first. There are a lot of things that we do around here that's natural, or like and even if it's not, just something not, like a strong medication. No, I believe you, Megan. I listen, there are so many good things out there that you don't have to, that can help heal you and not at the doctor. What's up, Moonlight? Hello. He says, wait, I'm early for once. LOL. What up, y'all? What up, though? Yes. Okay, let's get on into it. Let's get on into it. Sorry, excuse me. They're tripping, y'all. They are tripping. Okay, so remember we looked at the National Committee of Negro Churchmen. Remember that? Hold on, let me see. Oh, and I found a better copy also. So let me see. I think I can. Hold on. Here, I think. Let me try this. Is this it? Anyway, I'll do it like this. So we talked about this Friday. Remember this statement by National Committee of Negro Churchmen? Well, so one of these churchmen, his name is Gayrard S. Wilmore. Gayrard S. Wilmore was one of the leading men that signed this document. One of the, I guess you would call him a prominent, a high-ranking minister that signed this document. And so basically what this document says, we're not going to read through it again, but that, we're done with the way church was done before. And we are coming into agreement with this Black power. Okay. The way y'all white churchmen are doing things, that we don't want to do it that way. And, it's just a little bit too, it doesn't have enough chaos. It's too organized. It's too normal. It's too put together. It's too put together. And we don't really like that. We want things that are not so well organized and put together. I mean, it really, trust me, I'm not exaggerating. I'm going to play you a video clip of the man saying this, but it corresponds exactly with his exactly with this power statement. Sorry. Hold on. Let me share. Hey, make sure you guys hit the like button and share this video out. I'm just going to tap the share really, really quick myself. So before I forget, before we get into it, so we can get people over here watching. Let's see. We are. Please share this video out. Oops. Hold on. Okay. Y'all, when I tell you, it is really a wonder how they were able to get away with this explicit rejection of the true gospel. And my husband, when I was telling my husband, like all this stuff that I'm finding, he's like, well, they always said if you want to keep something from Black people, put it in the book. And I was like, you got a point there. And that's exactly what was done. This stuff was in the seminaries, and then it literally just spread out into the pulpits, into academia. It really just took over. And it really just took over. And it's not something that we can overlook. Okay, you can't overlook this, because when you see this and then you look out at the quote unquote Black church today, and when you see all of this foolishness going on in the quote unquote Black community, you see a lot of the ideas and ways to handle things like the Black Power movement, the Black Panther Party. You see a lot of chaos, very militant, aggressive, all of that stuff. We look out into, society, and when we look at Black American Blacks, we see a lot of this foolishness, especially among the young people. And yeah, it's just it's not it's not good. Megan says it's a lot of, if you're not with us, you're against us, probably. Yeah, it is a lot of that. I mean, but also like a rejection of Orthodox Christianity and saying like, we really don't want that stuff. So it's funny. Like, I mean, it's not funny. It's actually very sad. But let's go ahead and get into it.
We Black Presbyterians have an...
Okay, so this is Gayrard S. Wilmore.
We Black Presbyterians have an appointment to keep the pressure on, to lead in a radical reconstruction, to suffer and struggle with the cross behind Jesus in the name of truth and justice and righteousness. We have a new work to do by divine appointment.
Take note of all this new talk. What does he mean? How are we going to, like, in the context of church, Christ's church, the Bible, Christianity, how do we have a new doctrine? Like, that should make anybody's like ears perk up. How do you have a new, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about in the context of Christianity? Just listen to the buzzwords: struggle, labor. I don't know if he mentions that word, but just listen for the Marxist lingo, power, dismantling, this new whatever thing, this reimagined thing, all of the, y'all know the lingo.
This work of radical reconstruction, in the second place, in the Presbyterian Church, is ours by inheritance. That is to say, it was passed on to us from the Black Christian tradition. It is a heritage and a hope for a justice-loving and faithful church for all people that we are smitten with. I contend that we are betraying our inheritance, that is to say, the black Christian tradition, when we permit ourselves to be seduced by the white church, to be corrupted by the very sins that have corrupted that church. Have you noticed that some white Presbyterians thrive on bureaucratic games, on shuffling papers, on management by corporation gobbledygook? Have you noticed that? Have you been seduced into that same kind of Presbyterianism? A Presbyterian obsession with Robert's Rules of Order and decency and order and all of that. Too often an excuse for doing nothing and not really being honest about it. A smokescreen so often used for holding down dissent and maintaining control by elites. But my Bible tells me in 1 Corinthians 1:26, not many of you were powerful, not many of noble birth. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even the things which are not, to bring to nothing the things which are. I see in our church a falling away from
Okay, they just mangled up that scripture. So I think it's important that we break that down for real.
To bring to nothing the things which are.
Wait. Hold on.
I see in our church not many of noble birth. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even the things which are not, to bring to nothing the things which are. I see in our church a falling away from that self-understanding. I see in our church an increasing ecclesiasticism, and I refuse to participate in it. New standards for ordination, standards for calling pastors that are more stringent than they ought to be, pressures on seminaries to conform to some Presbyterian idea of what theological education is. The white church, my friends, is closing its ranks. It's closing its ranks. It's into a kind of fortress mentality against fundamentalism and the charismatic movement. And we're going along lockstep. Black Presbyterians don't have to play those kinds of games, and we ought to say so on the floor of presbyteries and senates and general assemblies.
Meaning, be disruptive. Don't follow the Roberts rules of the parliamentary, don't follow the order. Don't follow what, how things have been set up. Destroy the structure. Tear down that system and implement a new one, your own. It's radical, it's chaotic, it doesn't have any structure. You can come in looking how you want to look. You don't have to maintain a standard. Your hair can be all over your head. Your pants can be hanging off of your behind. Nobody, we over here in their world, doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter. And it's not the kind of, come as you are, but the power of the Holy Spirit will change how you leave. No. It's come as you are, and you're going to stay raggedy. That's their promise. You come in as you are, and then it's going to get worse. That's their solution. It's never a solution towards goodness and righteousness and holiness. No. We don't want law and order. We like chaos. That is exactly what he is saying.
To the extent that we become little Negro Presbyterians, posturing and nitpicking in our little BPUs or on the floors of presbyteries and senates, we, I say, are infected by the same disease. We betray the black Christian tradition. That's not our task. Our task is to claim that tradition, even if it is less sophisticated than white Calvinism, to refuse the solemn assemblies and the arrogance and the proprieties of the white middle class, and to tell our good white Presbyterian friends that that kind of Presbyterianism is ill-suited for the kind of world that we're living in today, and we won't play that game.
Okay, hold on.
All of that. Too often an excuse for doing nothing. Gobbledygook. Have you noticed that? Have you been seduced into that same kind of Presbyterianism? A Presbyterian obsession with Robert's Rules of Order and decency and order and all of that. Too often in Christian tradition, when we permit ourselves to be seduced by the white church, to be corrupted by the very sins that have corrupted that church. Have you noticed that some white Presbyterians thrive on bureaucratic games, on shuffling papers, on management by corporation gobbledygook? Have you noticed that? Have you been seduced into that same kind of Presbyterianism? A Presbyterian obsession with Robert's Rules of Order and decency and order and all of that. Too often an excuse for doing nothing and not really being honest about it. A smokescreen so often used for holding down dissent and maintaining control by elites. But my Bible tells me in 1 Corinthians 1:26, not many of you were powerful, not many of noble birth. God.
All right, let's look it up. 1 Corinthians. First Corinthians 1:26, I think he said. Let's see. Because I'm pretty sure he jacked that up. All right, let's see. It says, let's see here. It says, I'm just trying to get a little context here. I'm going to start at 18. For the message of the cross is foolish. Look at God. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise and bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of this world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through wisdom did not know God. I think somebody should have told Gayrard, like he should have started at 18, verse 18 and not 26. Maybe he didn't read that part. For since in the wisdom of God, the world through wisdom did not know God, it pleased God through the foolishness of the message preached to save those who believe. For Jews request a sign and Greeks seek after wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified to the Jews, a stumbling block, and to the Greeks foolishness. But to those who are called both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. Because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. For you, this is the verse he said, for you see your calling, brethren, not many wise according to the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called, But God has chosen the foolish things of the world to put to shame or to confound. I think the King James, the original says, to confound the wise. And God has chosen the weak things of the world to put to shame the things which are mighty, and the base things of the world, and the things which are despised, God has chosen, and the things which are not, to bring to nothing the things that are, that no flesh, Gerard, should glory in his presence. But of him you are in Christ Jesus, who became for us wisdom from God, and righteousness and sanctification and redemption, that as it is written, he who glorifies, let him glory in the Lord. So what William Gerard Wilmore is trying to say is that this scripture somehow, says that we shouldn't really be so orderly. With all your orderliness, you're doing the things of the world, and God hates God says that those things are foolish. But what he's not considering is that order, the order comes from the Lord. That's not what God is talking about here. That's not what Paul is talking about. Okay? He's talking about actually the type of things that Gerard is presenting. These vain philosophies, this enlightenment world, that is what he is, what Paul is talking about when he says, For you see your calling, brethren, that not many wise according to the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called. So the wise according to the flesh, meaning your natural knowledge, your not many mighty, your physical strength, not many noble are called. Good, like doing good. But God has chosen the foolish things, meaning God chooses those who don't have the PhD. Okay, he will look to the ones who haven't, who may seem weak in stature, small in stature. Look at David, the youngest of, the young boy called to be king. That's what God is talking about. Okay, he's talking about the people who are puffed up in their own thinking, in their own wisdom, not the wisdom of the Lord. Somebody with a name Be Honest says, why is this female trying to preach? Oh God. Bless your soul. Bless your soul. Why did that? Anyway. Why did Carmelo Anthony kill Austin Metcalf? Why why was the bacon that I had yesterday a little too salty? Why did I not sleep good last night? Why did I stub my pinky toe 20 years ago? Why did why was I molested at 5? Since we want to go to trauma, I am so sick of all of you, the people like Bottom Line. The people like Bottom Line, you act like racism is the only thing in the world that needs fixing. That is such a myopic, stupid way to look at the world. I'm sorry, that is dumb. I don't have a better PC way to say it. If you're only focusing on race, which is exactly what Reverend Dr. Gerard and all of these other minions, that's all y'all do. Your window of life is minuscule. And when you interpret everything around you as you're like one of these people that think everything that happened to you, that the Jews did it. You ain't no better than them. You sound stupid. Some nameless, faceless white person is oppressing you when you literally get up and do whatever you want to do, including coming on this channel and bothering us with your foolishness. I'm addressing this because I hope that it brings some light and revelation to somebody's mind who professes the name of Christ, but is still bound by racism or bound by being Black. You cannot claim both. Either Christ set you free and you are free indeed, or you're not. He does not accept anything else. It is a very exclusive. Okay, it is a narrow way. It's one way. You don't get a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of something. No, it's one way. That's what he requires. That is what he requires. He does not accept, I want to be Black and Christian. He does not accept anything being on his level. The moment you try to put something else up there, you're off. Moonlight says that man was speaking the very foolishness the Bible talked about, but he's too full of the spirit of Blackness and grievance to realize it. I don't believe. Wait till we read some of his even older stuff. This man, I feel very confident to say, as far as his writings and when he was making that speech, was not a Christian. Okay, not a Christian, and I will prove my point as we go along. If you disagree with me, if you think I don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm just talking crazy talk, click that link, come on up and tell me why I am wrong. Okay, be respectful, and we can have a robust conversation, discussion, and disagree, but you need to be respectful. Otherwise, it doesn't benefit anybody. It doesn't benefit anybody. Exactly. Bless their heart. Let's see. How is the question a problem? The whole point of this channel is to say what the Black church community is unnecessary. To say why the Black church community is unnecessary, but that moment at the White House shows certain things are necessary. I don't know what I don't understand. Okay. Nobody, absolutely no one, I don't care what color you are, escapes life without issues, traumas, people doing things to you, people mistreating you, people not doing what they should do. But racism is the only thing that people like bottom line, that's the only thing they see. A Black person could hold you, can rob you, can terrorize a neighborhood that you live in. They can rob grandmama, steal the mail, beat, snatch little kids out of their home, shoot up the neighborhood. They can do all this stuff in your neighborhood. But the only thing you see is the white man, that one person who did something you think is racist. It's not. Most of the time, none of this stuff is overtly racist. It's the stuff you deem racist, and you want everybody, every Black person to, strap on their protest shoes, go grab their picket signs, and spend their time trying to chase after some figment of your imagination. We don't have to do that just because we might share the same skin color. I am not you, and you are not me, and I am not moving with your fake collective nonsense. Just because A a white person says something to a black person does not mean that the person is racist. Even if it's something that it's something derogatory, it doesn't mean that they don't like you simply because you're black. You don't know why. Maybe they just think you're not a nice person. Maybe. And considering how you operate in the chat, I could see a lot of different color people thinking that you are not the person that just somebody I don't want to be around. I can really see that. See, you can't see that because you think because I'm black, you cool. Everything you do is cool. Every way you think, everything you believe the black power bullcrap. You believe it. You think everything that black people do is above board. It's foolish. You're ignorant. Thank you, Moonlight. She ain't trying. She is preaching. Let her cook. Let her cook. My goodness, life is short. Who wants to spend their time running around hunting down racism? I mean, there's really, honestly, if you want to, do some good in society and, you feel like, well, I'm not preaching the gospel, I'm a Christian, but I don't really want to focus on preaching the gospel, which is the actual antidote to, the liar, the murderer, the racist, the fornicator, the adulterer. It's the antidote for everything. You don't want to preach that. You just want to, oh, look, some white person did something to some black person. It's racist. And then, you know what? Go do something productive with yourself. When you stand before the Lord and he asks you, what did you do with the life that I gave you? What are you going to tell him? Oh, I pontificated on some UFC fight. Well, I thought the man, he said something racist. I don't know, Lord. I didn't spend my time reading your word, getting to know you better. I was, hunting down racism. Okay, well. Whew, man. Mystic Mark says, it's focus objectives. Jesus wanted everyone to work inside so the outside will become a reflection of that, not the other way around. Inner work is the first priority. Didn't he say it? Doesn't it say that? It says, yes, Mystic Mark, that is so on point. It's right here. For the message of the cross. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing. The people who are not saved, they are perishing. And so you're in darkness. The message of the cross is light. Jesus is light. And so when you're in darkness, it's somebody telling you this, you're like, huh? It doesn't make any sense. You don't understand. It's foolishness to you. You don't understand the paradox. So an innocent man died so that a guilty person could live. You don't understand it. It don't make sense. It's foolish to the perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. It is the power of God. All right, let's see. Spiffy Jips, you're pretty. I'm moving on. Good evening, ma'am. Thank you. Good evening. That's very nice. Megan says it's remedial for sure, but that's what bottom line does best. Okay, it's true. Let's see. Amen, Karen. I am free in Christ. Yes, like, man, that other stuff. Let's see. SP Flash says, talking to bottom line, I couldn't care less if you were offended by that because it sounded racist. That's a you problem. I mean, Gregatron, what's up? Hello, hello. Moonlight says, what does the black church and what happened at the White House have to do with each other? Exactly. Oh, Lord. Troy Banks, hello. He says, God has infinity wisdom. My wisdom is not that wise. So when my actions are stupid, how to take God by surprise? Langston Hughes. Yeah, Langston was another. He was another. I mean, that's a good line, but he was another wokey woke woke. They might just not like it. I mean, seriously, people just don't like people for whatever reason. You know, maybe you remind them of somebody that they just don't like. You know, I mean, it's not always about race, and you are not God to read the hearts and intents of somebody's to read the mind and their heart's intents. You don't have that ability. You need to, that is pride and arrogance. You need to pipe down. Mystic Mark says, I'm 47 years old, got people of every ethnic background I've called friends since first grade. Many dead and gone, others in their struggles, other huge successes, never had a hug I didn't like. I mean, it's life. It is life. It is ups and downs. It is trauma, struggles, things happening to you. The Bible does not shy away from life's struggles. It tells us straight up and down from the jump. In this life, you are going to be afflicted. That's why you know the Bible is true. It is the only book that is honest with you. It's not the book that says, well, you know, if you do good, everything's just going to be fine. The Bible doesn't play you like that. The Bible tells you what's up. The Bible says, look, this is going to be some rough times. However, I have overcome the world. So put your faith in me and you will be good. But that ain't good enough for people. It ain't good enough for the Gayrards, the Gayrard Wilmores and the James Cones. It's not, and the Jude 3 Project people. Oh, I've seen some stuff from them, more stuff. Maybe we'll have some time to play that. Foolishness. Straight foolishness. You don't escape. I don't care who you are, white people included. They don't escape struggles and trials and people not liking them. They got the whole world not liking them. People on national TV today talking about, well, you know, your problem, everybody, is white men. I don't see them up here on my live talking about, I'm so look. And if they did, I'd tell them the same thing. Good gracious. I'm sorry. Can I just say, when a man, let me just be real. When a man walks around constantly blaming somebody else for their troubles and their problems, you are an instant turnoff. The only women that want your raggedy behind are the leftists who are going to murder your children in the womb. They're going to or trans the kid, make them infertile, don't want to be a wife, have no desire to have a family or do anything that is actually fulfilling in life. So they can have your raggedy behind. But conservative women that value, obviously, that love God, that understand family and want to want a husband that is about something, that kind of mess is a turn off. Don't no woman want to be with a man who be walking around the house talking about, oh, well, you know, the white man, oh, somewhat. Well, honey, who was it? Well, you know, it's just all the white men. It's just the white men are after me. I mean, who wants to live in a freaking state of paranoia? Nobody wants to live in that foolishness. Sorry, I know I'm going on a different thing, but hear me when I tell you, no woman worth anything wants a man who does not provide stability. If you are running around, you talking about some nameless, faceless white man and people out to get you, that is not stable. That does not communicate stability to a woman. It communicates coward. Stop. You look crazy. Moving on. Now that I've got that off my chest. How you know Michelle Obama didn't deserve it? How you know? Maybe he did something. Maybe she did something to him. Maybe they got. I don't know, but you don't know either. You don't know. Just because it's plenty of people. Go on social media. It's plenty of people saying derogatory things about other people all the time. When a black person, when DL Hughley is saying something disparaging another black person, do you find a problem with that too? Or is it only when it's a white person and it's a black person? If it's only that setup, you have a problem. You are the race focused racist. That's you. That ain't got nothing to do with that dude who was probably just making a joke. Well, I don't see. Do you do this when they talk about Melania? All the crazy stuff that they say about Melania. Do you do that? Okay, I probably not. Yo, go and do some introspection. Let's see. Hey, Maru 23 says, like Andre 3000 said, y'all don't want to hear me. You just want to dance. Book. Robin Duke. Hi, Quisha. Hello. You guys, if you want to support the channel, please, you can support by Cash App, Super Chats, and Super Stickers, and also the buy me a coffee.com/Quisha King Benton. If you would like to support my work that I does and does around these parts. Lee Johnson, hello, says the Bible shows Jesus was a man of color and didn't die on a cross. Oh, really? Lee, you can click the link in the description and we can discuss that. Because I don't know I don't see where the Bible shows that Jesus was a man of color. And I certainly don't know where you said he didn't die on a cross. You mean a tree? Because sometimes they say tree. Is that what you're talking about? Click the link. Come on up. Let's discuss. Let's see. Don't be a coward now, Lee. Oh, Moonlight says, Mystic Mars, I think these people are seriously communist and socialist to the core. They absolutely are. Let's see here. William says, I think his name was Ryan on here last Friday night. Yes, that was Ryan. He seems like he just wanted to argue and was not trying hard enough to understand. Just wanted to argue. Definitely just wanted to argue. Could not offer anything of real value to the conversation. We don't want those kind of conversations. We want conversations that actually, they can be robust, but we should be able to at least get a sentence out and listen to each other. So it adds value. But all of that, just over talking and trying to showboat just for the sake of it, that's whack and corny. Karen says, I'm pretty sure my lovely white neighbors are neighbors not worried about me. That no, they worried about their own stuff. Lee Johnson. Wait a minute. Didn't I block you? What was your other name? Megan, do you recognize who? I feel like he's been here before. Let's see. I'm I'm and I'm main Fidel. I don't know. Earth is orbiting the sun. The moon is orbiting the earth. The sun is orbiting a black hole. What you decide to orbit is your own galaxy. Okay. This is just funny and silly, but I just want you guys to read. God will not forget the crimes of whites. Revelation 2:22-12. If you believe that, anybody who's listening, the Bible does not show partiality to race. Okay. What kind of God would show partiality to race when he created all humanity? That is so stupid. If you think just past the thought, if you think into it just a little bit, like, who will worship a God that shows partiality to race? Like, I would not worship a God that showed partiality to race. That would be silly. That is not a God of all. That's not an almighty God. Like an almighty God that shows partiality to only um a group that has certain melanin. That is absolutely ridiculous when everybody has melanin. So God is like, like exactly what level would he give the cutoff? You know what I'm saying? Like exactly when do you become black for God to make such a judgment? That is like, you cannot. I love that God led me down this road because when people start talking, you really get to see what's in there. And you be like, oh my God, go back inside. Good gracious. Moonlight says the Bible doesn't even say that we are the ones who will end racism. Jesus is the one, the shoulders of whom the government will rest, not us. He will put an end to all of this. Amen. He said, first of all, he said that I have already overcome the world. It's a already happened, but not yet kind of thing. It's like a in time and an eternity thing. God has already handled the problem by faith. Like if you can, that's the whole thing about the Christian faith. God has already handled the problem if you put your trust in him. That's the beautiful thing about Christianity. When you put your trust in him, you ain't got to worry about that. Now, I'm not saying like don't put yourself in harm's way, don't be stupid, don't be ignorant, be prudent, do those things. But when you take your cares to the Lord and when you are his and you take your cares to him, he handles it for you. He loves to do it. He tells us to do that exact thing. But no, we want to pick it up. We got the answer. Anyway, if you disagree, click the link that's pinned in the comment and come on up. Bottom line, stop typing, okay? Can you just stop? Because you're just irritating. Mhm. let's see. Um, okay. All right. So back to what we were talking about. Gayrard. So he totally misrepresented scripture. Okay. If you disagree with me, click the link.
God
Come
chose
on up. Okay. Come on up and disagree. We're going to listen to just a like midway, just a little bit of this and get us back on track.
Robert's Rules of Order and decency and order and all of that. Too often an excuse for doing nothing and not really being honest about it. A smokescreen so often used for holding down dissent and maintaining control by elites. But my Bible tells me in 1 Corinthians 1:26, not many of you were powerful, not many of noble birth. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even the things which are not, to bring to nothing the things which are.
He's trying to say that because in his mind, blacks are completely powerless. He's trying to say that in that scripture, black people are the powerless ones, the ones that have no strength, and so God is for them, but that is not what God is talking about. He's not basing this on your outside, your superficial characteristics, your melanin. He's not basing that. He's talking about your heart. He's talking about your heart, not, your skin color. How silly could you be? It's an insult to the gospel. It is an insult to true biblical theology. It is an insult to true biblical exegesis to sit here and say that 1 Corinthians 1:26 is saying, oh yeah, this is about black people. It's just clearly about black people and white people, thinking they're the wise. Foolishness. And I know you're probably like, oh gosh, Quisha, like, how do you really, do you really think that this is what he's saying? Yes, I do. Because he has written written about these things a lot. He can't keep his mouth shut. Okay. This gets his this cooks his goose. Okay. Let's see. Mhm. Streets of gold. What does scripture say about women teaching or preaching or staying silent in church? It says for women to stay silent in church. Are we at church? I'm sorry. Am I a pastor? Is this church? Is this church for you? I don't know what to tell you. Now, we are members of the church. Many of us are blood-bought believers. We are part of the body of Christ. But this ain't church. So that scripture doesn't apply. Like, oh my gosh. Oh, I tell you. Okay. What happened? Okay. All right. So the case for a new black church style. All right. So this is by Gayrard S. Wilmore, chairman of the Division of Church and Race, board of the National Missions the United Presbyterian Church in America. So, okay, here's his background and all of that. Now, we're not going to read all of this. But we're going to read enough for you to get to know William. I keep calling him William. Get to know Gayrard a little bit better. So he says that the fact that Black power could not be understood or interpreted by white churches and white churchmen became clear on the march between Memphis and Jackson in the summer of 1966. That's right, same year that they wrote their Black Power Statement, National Committee of Negro Churchmen. Yes, same year, but in March. Remember, that was in July. Nor were they able to correct the distortions of what had happened, as perceptions and explanations became confused both in and outside of the movement itself. That task, as far as the churches were concerned, had to be performed by Negro churchmen who were close enough to the national scene to have a panoramic view, who had been deeply enough involved with Dr. King and the civil rights movement to have won their right to speak boldly, and who were Black enough to challenge without deep feelings of guilt and betrayal. The white brethren who were beginning to show signs of reconciling with the great mass of white liberal opinion and backlash against Black power. So they didn't really understand this whole thing. Like, what are y'all trying to do with this whole Black power thing? Like, but you got to be, in order for you to be deemed credible, you needed to be close to the national scene. You need to be able to talk to people of power, right? They're so against the power, but you needed to be close to it. But under the guise of a panoramic view. Yeah, sure. Okay. Who had been deeply enough involved with Dr. King and the civil rights movement. So, that all of this is giving you your credibility to come out as bold as the devil, and say, we ain't doing that real Christianity thing. We're doing this Black power thing. So you had to have all these kinds of things, right, under your belt for you to be taken seriously. Something else was even more obvious by the summer of 1966. The famous slogan, which the Federal Council of Churches had adopted in the late 1930s, quote, a non-segregated church in a non-segregated society. Sounds good to me. That had become totally bankrupt, okay? As an expression of church action in the race field. The banner of a non-segregated society begged too many burning questions to be unfurled as a brave pronouncement of where we were and where we thought we were going. Okay, so all this trying to come together under your, we're really not trying to be, we don't want to be with y'all. We don't want to be integrated. We want to be segregated, okay? M. Bucknow says the paper reads like a desperate man trying to cope. Yo, you do not know how on the money you are. That is exactly what these people give. They give out this vibe of pathetic, begging the white people to, it's like on one hand, they want to beg, pay attention to us, look at what we're doing, acknowledge us, but then be like, but not that way. And then we want to force you to do it our way. We want to force you. So not only do we just want to separate ourselves and go about our business, no, we want to force you for us to be in control of your systems that we already don't like. Pathetic. Instead of you know, anyway, instead of building something of integrity yourself, you did the opposite. You wanted to take over by force somebody else's stuff and bring in chaos. Was it not of the very nature of the church in the United States that it is and always has been segregated by race and class? Was there any indication? Was there, sorry, was there any indication that the majority of either white or black Christians wanted it differently? We was fine with the very nature of it being separate, which it really, that's not really how it was. But he's saying like, well, who said we wanted it differently? Was there any reasonable expectation that churches could be desegregated before widespread desegregation occurred in housing, public schools, and in the informal and associational structures of American society? Finally, should Black Christians permit themselves to be integrated within overwhelmingly white church structures without the freedom to develop and maintain their own leadership echelons and without determinative power concerning the effect on their lives? Shouldn't we have shouldn't we have, what is that thing, oh gosh, when they you want the freedom to determine, what is that thing, it's like a self-determination, the freedom to self-determination. Okay. Kevin, hi Kevin. Oh my gosh, like I feel like we have a celebrity. Kevin Briggins, everybody is in the building. Act accordingly. Put on your best. Hi Kevin, how are you? You need this. Yo, I got you. Here, let me put the link in the chat. How about that? Let me do that. Here is the link. There you go. It's a long, is this the one? Yeah, it's actually several of his documents. So it's a treasure trove, Kevin. Enjoy. You look, it's a treasure trove. So he says, oh, by the way, everybody, that is who the red circle, that's Gayrard. So this is Hosea Williams on the left. Y'all know Portia Williams from Housewives of Atlanta. That is her grandfather. Gayrard is in the middle there. I don't know who this is, but he looks familiar. I can't and then that's Martin and that's Coretta, and I don't think they have his name on the credit thing of the picture, just so you know. So that was him when he was younger. I just wanted to show you guys how he was well integrated into all, like, this is a major press conference. Yeah, he was pretending to be, oh, I'm so lowly and poor, and he moved around high society. Okay, so he says, finally, should Black Christians permit themselves to be integrated within the overwhelmingly white church structures without the freedom to develop and maintain their own leadership echelons and without determinative power concerning the effect of their lives? The need for new styles of Black-white relationships. Sobered by the failure of the old civil rights movement in the North and made wiser by the interracial confrontations which have occurred over the last several months within ecumenical circles as well as within the denominations, we approach the problem of reconciling Black and white within the one Church of Christ from a different direction. Oh, really? let's see what direction they want to go in, shall we? Okay, well, where are we going? All right. Black churchmen in predominantly white denominations know well that the real question is not whether these churches can become truly integrated on Sunday morning, but whether in the next 25 to 50 years, these churches will have any meaningful contact with Black people at all. Oh, I don't even know if any of these churches are even gonna like, are y'all gonna act like, are you gonna ghost me? Like, I'm just saying, are you gonna ghost me though? Because if I give you all of me, how you gonna treat me? This is so ridiculous. Okay. If that question can be answered affirmatively, we must inquire how that contact will contribute to the dignity and humanity of both Black and white people in a time of revolutionary change. It is not merely segregation or integration which are at stake today. It is rather the question of the viability of the Christian church in the United States and perhaps in the Western civilization. Now you saying something that you are saying that the Christian church, which is Christ's church, is viable in the West. You see this, right? This man is questioning whether the church, Christ's church, is viable. How can Christ's church not be viable anywhere? Like, what are you talking about? These people do not believe the same Bible. They don't believe Jesus. They believe in another Jesus. This is the same man that worked with James Cone, and all of this Black power, Black theology trickled out into American society everywhere. Okay? I hope we can understand, so we can understand why we see what we see today. When we look at the Black church, why does it look so different? I need to say this. Why does it look so different? Why does it seem like the Black church is like the only church that is just like homosexuality, like if the church, the quote unquote white churches, I guess, who do those kinds of things, they're explicit. We're an affirming church. They tell you. They don't pretend like they are, not that way, but just here's two gay pastors. They don't do it like that. At least most of them are like, okay, yeah, here, this is what we believe. You don't see them trying as much. You know what I'm saying? Why does the Black church look so different? Why are the people that are in these quote unquote Black churches, why do they always remain on the bottom of everything? That is not God's, that is not, and I'm not saying that everybody's, gonna have, a financially blessed life, but you can have a mom, dad, and children and not be rich. That is rich. Like if you can maintain a family, you're doing something. Why can't Black people, in America, as as a whole, why do they struggle with that? Why do they struggle with the crime? Why do they struggle with poverty? Why is it so much of everything on the bottom and these people in church all the time? Because they're not worshiping the true and living God. That's why. And I want to say one other thing. I really believe, the more I read these people's words, I really believe that because slavery happened, and it happened to be promoted primarily by white people in America, that for some people, all colors, they, whatever a white person did from that point on, regardless of who they are, their background, or who, what their heart was like, regardless, you were automatically deemed like some racist. It's like a lot of Black people were not able to separate what happened in the past and what happened, what, what, how people came out of those things, and they weren't there, they were not the same person as their grandfather or whatever, just like everybody else, you know like, oh shoot, I got sorry. It's crazy. Wait, hold on, let me read some of the comments. Let's see. Okay. All right. But yes, I just wanted to say that it really does feel like these people, they have not been able to see that just because something happened, one group of people, not even the whole group, they happen to be white, and they were slave owners, and somehow that makes people today, or people even in the 60s and 70s, white people, like they everything, everybody white did the same thing. It's just nonsense, and that is not, it's not reality. Anyway, all right, it is not merely segregation or integration which are at stake today. It is rather the question of the viability of the Christian church in the United States, and perhaps in the Western civilization. It is the question of whether or not this church can any longer encompass within it the masses of non-white persons who make up the majority of the peoples of the earth, without undergoing radical changes in its understanding of its purpose in the world vis-a-vis robbed, subjugated, and excluded peoples, without dismantling its organizational structures for mission, and without bringing an end to its basic conformity to European theological traditions and Anglo-Saxon styles of life and structures of value. The church cannot proceed through this period of crisis as a viable and relevant institution without a radical change in its spiritual and physical relationship to Black Christians. I'm going to read that again. Well, let me read. Most of whom are in all Black churches and to the Black community as a whole. It says the church cannot proceed through this period of crisis as a viable and relevant institution without a radical change in its spiritual and physical relationship to Black Christians. So in order for the church to survive and be relevant, it has to have a radical change spiritually and its physical relationship to Black Christians. That is insane. If you look this man up, he is beloved, okay, amongst seminary, theologians, ministers. Oh, he's just beloved. His ideas have spread well into American society. And he is not, he's wearing the robes of Jesus, but he don't believe it. It's just a mask. He's a Marxist. So he goes on to talk about there's a bunch of different points in here. Here's another interesting one. The black church development. The black churches, this is really interesting. I mean, they literally tell you what they're doing. We just don't like these things. They don't want you to actually go and really read their go back and read their books and writings, because they won't be able to withstand the scrutiny. The Black church, which split off from the white Methodist and Baptist denominations in the latter part of the 18th and early 19th century, borrowed heavily from the white churches, which had first evangelized them and ordained their clergy. Let's see. Okay, so the black churches, they borrowed heavily from white churches in the early 18th and 19th centuries, which had first evangelized them and ordained their clergy. However, these black churches were able to develop their own styles of life and their own institutions. An authentic black culture and religion were germinated. Whatever may be said of the deficiencies or excesses of their preaching and brand of churchmanship, they were the preeminent expression of the yearning for freedom and dignity by a people who had been introduced to a religion, but excluded from all but the most demeaning aspects of the cultural mold of that religion. No, sir, that's not the crux of the religion. Not the social and cultural. The crux of the religion is Jesus, which I haven't heard you mention one time in this entire article. Not once. On the other hand, the black churches, which remain a part of the mainline white denominations, were excluded from participation in the mainline culture. They were obliged to substitute whatever they held of their own for a system of white cultural and religious values. Thus, a system developed in the black church and community, which could only be a poor facsimile of the real thing. A second class culture for second class citizens. Do you hear what he is saying? He is saying, if you practice true Christianity, which they have deemed white Christianity, I'm waiting to read someone just say it flat out. We believe white Christianity is we believe white Christianity is wrong Christianity. I'm just waiting for them to say it, because they go all the way around the world and never say it, but that's what they want to say. Who else is Mulay says they will never mention Jesus. Never. They never talk about Jesus. Let's see. Despite the fact that the white denominations have made a lasting contribution to these churches and to their communities by establishing hundreds of churches, schools, and colleges throughout the nation, and especially in the South, it must nevertheless be conceded that as long as these institutions remain under white control, they remain unable to interpenetrate the white cultural accretion with a distinctive black ingredient as a viable component of the American ethos. At best, they were the objects. Basically, he's saying, like, the black people, when you're just trying to be a good white boy. You're just trying to be, you're never equal. You're still second class. You're never going to be, seen of any real value. At best, they were the objects of a benevolent paternalism and either atrophied or were smothered to death in the avid embrace of the great white father and the great white mother. Y'all, these people are psychotic, psycho. At worst, they Kevin, are you hearing this? Do you hear this? Is he still here? Hi, Paul. Paul says, hi, Quisha and chat. I'm listening, but can't chat for half an hour dealing with my family. All good. Take care of your family. All good. All good. Good to see you, though. Thanks for checking in. Yeah, the vertical chat is always wow. Wow now. Megan says what he wrote felt oddly sexual. I don't know, but it's definitely crazy. At worst, they were hostages thrown over the walls of the white churches to keep at bay the wolves of a guilty conscience and a national embarrassment. In such a situation, it was inevitable that a kind of cynicism would develop on both sides, and that one day these whitenized Black Christians would say, there ain't nothing Charlie can do for me but lay his money on the line and move on. That's the name of the game we've been playing with one another. And if he's satisfied with it, so am I. He's just making fun of other Black people. I wonder if Bottom Line has a problem with this. Woo! Whitenized Black churches today. The problem of the whitenized Black churches, this is a minister, supposedly a minister of the gospel, talking like this. The problem of the whitenized Black churches today is how to recover their own self-respect by demythologizing the white cultural bag through which the faith was transmitted to them and in which they have curled themselves up so comfortably. In so doing, they may discover that the essence of the Christian faith not only transcends ultimately the ethnocentric culture of the white man, but that of the Black man as well. That this Christ, in whom there is neither Jew nor Greek, bond nor free, male nor female, is also neither Black nor white. Oh my gosh. Listen to that's what, in doing so, they made, okay, so if you if you actually read the gospel for what it is, you are somehow you're curling up in the white man's way of reading the Bible, for lack of a better way to say it. And he says, but in doing this, that you might actually discover that the essence of the Christian faith not only transcends ultimately the ethnocentric culture of the white man, but that of the Black man as well. This is the first time he told the truth. This is the truth. It does transcend culture of white, Black, whatever. It transcends everything. Yes. In whom there is no Jew nor Greek, bond nor free. You just believe he's like making fun of the truth. Megan says, I have a serious question. Why do they have all the smoke for white people and no smoke for the Catholic Church? There's not a lot of Black Catholics. And so it's like, it's not a lot of meat there. It's not a lot of meat on the bone. Moonlight says, wait, did he just acknowledge white people have a culture? Well, that's good at least. Right? Well, yeah, but but they say that it's like not that it has a culture, but that it's like kind of translucent. It doesn't really um it's not like it's, they say it's just the norm. Not that it is a culture, but it's just the norm, which it is, that is a culture, but whatever. Megan says, that's not what I'm talking about. They want to make the white man the problem, but the Catholic Church is the white church in their eyes. Why don't they have problems with that specifically? That's a really great question, Megan. Okay, so when I say that there's not enough black people there, you in their mind, you have to, when white is the norm, it's like the opposite is black. But if I don't have enough blacks to, like, get a revolution, you need enough blacks in order to get the, have a movement. I mean, but if it's not enough people over there to use, then you can't even see my face. If it's not if it's not enough, people to use, then there's no movement to be had. Just like, I'm trying to think. You have to have, enough blacks to agitate. That's what I'm trying to say. Marxists, they look for the margins to agitate and get people to take over and disrupt things. The Catholic Church is way too big for this small group of people to infiltrate. But however, in the Hispanic, in the like the Latin world, Gutierrez, he did this in the Catholic Church. He was the one that did liberation theology in the Catholic Church. This was just not, but because there were a lot of Hispanic Catholics. So you got to have the group that needs to go after the dominant society or the dominant culture. You got to have enough of them to, actually make some movement. We just don't have that in America. So that's why I believe it, from what I read, that's why I believe that they did not ever try to go after the Catholic Church. Exactly. Trying to infiltrate and initiate. Yeah, you got to have that. You got to have enough, people to actually do something. I just don't. At least that's what I see from understanding their thinking. They don't have enough people to revolutionize. But I could be wrong. That's just my theory. I don't know. What do y'all think? Why do y'all think that they didn't go after the white church, the Catholic Church? But that's all I got. Let's see. Megan says, I would think that the Catholic Church will be a good scapegoat for the race hustlers, but I guess they know they can't handle that smoke because the Catholic Church would fight back against those narratives. In some, when you look at what the Gutierrez guy, what he did, they kicked him out, I believe, at first, but then he was later on acknowledged by the Catholic Church. And, we got some very Marxist leaning popes, so yeah, I mean, I would not say it was totally ineffective. It just depends on the part of the world, just like, actually Chuck would be better to speak on this than me. But Chuck, if you're listening, help me out. But this, there were, Marxists, their quest for global domination. It's like, they had to work with what they had until they could get those people revolutionized. Like in America, many blacks were not down with the communist movement, because the sentiment across America was like, communism is bad, until it came under the guise of Black Power, or the Civil Rights Act, Black Power, the Black Panther Party, so it like they found a group, they found a way to grow it. I just think it just didn't work. The Catholic angle just didn't work here, but it definitely worked in other countries. Yeah, it definitely did. So yeah, I was just reading about this because of the Gutierrez guy. But yeah, at first they rejected it, but later on it's like that social gospel. They start to line it up close to the Bible. They don't, we really need to care for the poor. It's just we're not gonna ask us to do it. We're gonna go to the government to do it. You see, I mean, and they just did it. They just did it differently. And then they throw this guilt trip on you to make you feel like, oh, this is what Christ would have for you to do. But if you're not reading your Bible, you will be mistaken in it because it does sound good at first. Gerbs Bain says, got to find the best market to fish for useless idiots. That's true. That is true. When you listen to the let me see if I can find this real quick. That's a great question, Megan. Let's see. Maybe I can find this for you. I played it on here before. Let me see if I can find it really quick though. What is his name? Let's see. Here. Share this. Here, let me show you guys this. All right. This is a really great little documentary.
Listen, see, we the Negro people down here have gotten completely fed up. And you know what they're gonna do tonight? They don't care. They not gonna fight down here no more. You know where they going? They after the white people. Now they after the white people. They gonna congregate. They gonna caravan out in Inglewood, Playa Del Rey, and everywhere else the white man. They gonna stay. They gonna do the white man in tonight. And I'm gonna wait. No.
No, let me move on before they copyright strike me.
Anarchy,
Hold
the
on.
breakdown of law and order, a chaotic reign of terror, mob rule and rioting, the collapse of government authority. These phrases ring strange in the ears of Americans, and for good reason. Through the years, America has stood as the world symbol for law and order. Our government is responsive to the will of the people. Our courts and legislatures provide the mechanics for a peaceful redress of grievances. And the policeman on the corner has traditionally been looked upon as a friend, not as the instrument of a tyrant.
Let's see. Hold on.
Anarchy, well, that was something we read about in our newspapers that was always happening in other countries. Perhaps the people in other countries had just reasons to riot against their governments. After all, many of the nations of the world are dictatorships in one form or another. What business was it of ours, anyway? Newsworthy, perhaps, but it could never happen here. Then, in the summer of 1964, widespread rioting and looting suddenly broke out in Harlem, in Rochester, all within a few days of each other.
Hold on, y'all. I'm trying to find a specific one. I thought that was the one. Let's see. I don't know. I might have to find it for you guys and just play it later. I know it's this because, oh, you know what? I got it. I know how to do it. Watch. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I'm so sorry. But I want you to see this. Because I think here we go. Right here.
I am Leonard Patterson. When I was a young man, only 23 years old, I joined the Communist Party. I was a member of the National Executive Committee of the American Young Communist League. In 1930, I was the official communist candidate for election to New York State Assembly. I knew Gus Hall and other top-ranking American communists very well because I trained with them at the Lenin University in Moscow. I joined the party because I honestly thought the communists were trying to help American Negroes. I broke away from the party when it became clear to me what the communists were really up to was to use the Negro people in this country as cannon fodder in a violent and bloody revolution aimed at the establishment of the American Soviet dictatorship. It was that simple, and it is still that simple today. Make no mistake about it. What is happening in the United States right now under the banner of civil rights is exactly what has happened in China, in Cuba, in Algeria, and many other places around the world.
I'm Julia Brown. For 9 years, I was a member of the Communist Party, serving as an undercover agent for the FBI. During that time, I learned that the communist conspiracy had been planning and working for years to bring violent revolution to America. It was to be a communist revolution, but the great majority of the American people would not be allowed to realize that until it had already happened. If all goes according to the communist blueprint, Americans will believe that the chaos and violence has something to do with civil rights. Our enemies were quick to find our weakest point for their attack. They knew that racial differences could provide them with an excellent wedge to divide our people. Their strategy simply has been to keep hammering on that wedge, to drive it deeper into our social structure, to open all wounds that have long since healed, and deliberately to create new ones wherever they can.
Now he acted like a good nigga for the white folks. But I tell you, I don't want to even be around no more good niggas. I'm with them good Negroes. That's what they call Rodriguez, a good Negro. I want to be with the bad niggas because I know what's happening with the bad niggas. That's where I want to be.
You hear that? This is in church. Doesn't he sound awfully similar to Gerard S. Wilmore's writings? This whole we're nonviolent. We wouldn't dare. We're nonviolent. Look, we're Christian because we're nonviolent, which is, I hope everybody knows that the nonviolent thing is not a Christian tactic belief. It is not. That is Gandhi and some other stuff. What is it? Love Quisha's old clips always take me back to school in my social studies class. But this is way better. This is way better. This is legit. Maxwell came out like hot grease in a pan. Okay. He said he want to be with the good nignogs. Okay. We've been divided ever since. Isn't that crazy, Jenny? Do you see the evil, wicked seed that this black power, black church foolishness has planted in the minds of millions of people? All of this stuff, the LGBTQ, the trans stuff, all of the civil rights, all these black people around here begging and pleading the government, to supply all their needs. Instead of going to God, they teach you to go to the government. And that is it. All of those things ride on the back of the civil rights movement. All these groups they get to proliferate themselves and their organizations off of the civil rights movement. And I asked Chuck to come up, and he is here to talk. We're probably going to talk about this, the Catholic, and why. I thought that was a really great question. Why? Hi, Chuck. Why?
Yeah, I heard my name, so I came running. I've been watching you the entire time. I said, you know what, maybe tonight is a good night to just let Quisha do her thing by herself. I knew you had some things you wanted to read, so you get off your chest. So I figured I'm not gonna come suck up all the air. But I saw the bat signal go up, so I threw my cowl and my cape on, and I came in. So,
well, thanks for coming. Tell your lovely wife I said hello, and I got her message, and
she can hear you.
Okay. Hey, girl. Hey.
She said hi.
Oh. By the way, I ignored it, but I do want to say this. Somebody in the chat was like, "Oh, Chuck is so handsome." Okay, first of all, he is a happily married man. Okay, I'm trying to tell y'all that you probably never seen his wife. You can't compete. Okay, this is hard. Okay, she's stunning. That kind of beautiful. So watch yourselves in the comments. That's my friend. Okay.
well, thank you all around. I thank you. My wife says thank you.
You are welcome.
Yeah.
I mean this. Like, our families know each other. This is not like just some. We this is a real brother sister family thing here. Okay. So we don't play all that foolishness in the comments.
Yeah.
But your sound is back to normal.
All right, there we go.
Yeah. Look at the Lord. Won't he do it?
Won't he do it?
So you can relax now. You don't have to sit so close.
Okay.
You can go back to normal. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, you good now. I don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened either.
But we're good. Okay, so help us with this. Megan had a great question. She said, how, the Catholic Church is a massive, white predominantly church. Why, since, all these black power people, these black power ministers, they got such a problem with the white folks, but they don't ever really seem to go after the Catholic Church. Now, just to give you what I think you probably heard what I said, but if anybody didn't hear, I said that probably because there's not enough black people in the Western or the American, quote unquote, there's not a lot of Black people in the American Catholic Church to create that revolution like thing that they would need. That's all I got. What you got?
Well, first thing, let me just say, let me back up to, I know a while back at the top of the show, there was some people in the comments. Our good friend, Bottom Line, made a comment about Michelle Obama. I think, what was it, one of the UFC fighters, I guess made a comment or something about Michelle Obama being a man. I think that's
yeah,
what
it was a stupid. I mean, it was.
I'm not gonna get it sidetracked off into a whole thing about that.
Yeah.
Let me just say that, of course, there have been online rumors and memes and jokes, people questioning Michelle Obama's sexuality. Let me just say that, I mean, you probably have some people out there who genuinely believe it. Some people just do it just to sort of troll her or troll the Obamas. Whether they are on the liberal side of things, the conservative side of things. I've seen the most famous podcaster in the world, Joe Rogan, make jokes about Michelle Obama being born a man. Joe Rogan is no conservative by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
He simply seems to align with the populist right because the left has gone insane. And Joe Rogan is still somewhat sane. Okay. I will say that I don't agree with Joe Rogan on probably the majority of his beliefs, but nevertheless, this is something that's been this rumor people have been throwing around for a long time. I personally, I don't feed into it. I don't believe Michelle Obama is a man. Okay.
Yeah, I don't either.
But I mean, it's I guess it's funny. It's something people traffic in or whatever.
Yeah.
But so there you go. But I just wonder, and then someone else said, what did Michelle Obama do to deserve this? I'm going, this the same Michelle Obama who said that she wasn't proud of her country until her husband was elected?
Yeah.
Is this the same Michelle Obama who went around talking about how much she fears for the lives of her daughters if they were ever to be stopped by a police officer? Is this the same Michelle Obama who said that Black people aren't wanted in museums? Is this the same Michelle Obama who said that she believes America is systemically racist because one time she was that a white woman cut in front of her in line at a Dairy Queen? Is this the same Michelle Obama who said that she was offended at one time when a white woman in Target didn't recognize her, and the white woman had the audacity to ask the first lady or the former first lady to get something off of a shelf for her that she couldn't reach?
Probably because she's so tall, like a man.
I was so offended.
That is so great. I never heard that one.
Oh yeah,
she's so arrogant, like
arrogant and unconscionable.
That's why people don't like you. It's because of you. It's just because of you. It ain't your skin color.
Like, how dare you not recognize me? You asked me to get something off a shelf for you. Do I look like I work here?
Could you imagine? Oh,
right. That's supposed to be racist, I guess. While she fans the flames of racism and bitterness while pretending to be a victim. Oh, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, that woman is the worst. She is unconscionable, a vile woman. But I will just say, and I didn't mean to say that much, but I'll just say to people who are like, well, when stuff like that happens and you talk about, you question whether we need a Black church. Let me tell you something. I don't know who that person worships, but let me just say, maybe you don't believe. But I'm gonna tell you right now, I ain't going to hell for Michelle Obama. I ain't going to hell for her. So I don't care if what was said about Michelle Obama was downright racially insensitive, bigoted, racist. I don't care if the person showed up in a Ku Klux Klan outfit and called her every racial epithet in the book. There's no amount of racism under the sun that's going to cause me to compromise my soul by professing a false gospel. Ain't gonna do it. Ain't gonna do it.
Like,
say what you want to say about it. I ain't gonna help Michelle Obama.
We're talking about eternity here. I'm sorry. This is temporal. Look, we'll be all right.
Right. But anyway, back to your question. I concur. Man. I concur, with this being, of course, the United States. It's a predominantly Protestant nation, right? A nation who, I mean, there were times, and of course, different European powers were vying for control. I think for a time, I think Florida was under Spanish control, and I know the French were here, around different parts of the country. Of course, being a native of Detroit, we have roots with the French colonial powers here in Detroit. I believe I forget his name, but I believe Detroit was founded by a Frenchman. So, but for the most part, like you said, we are a Protestant country, and so that was a pretty straightforward answer. But I like how you mentioned the fact that when it comes to the Catholic Church, they chose Hispanics to do their bidding in this case. But the Catholic Church is very important because seeing as how it is very structured, very hierarchical. The communist movement saw the Catholic Church as a huge prize. If they could infiltrate it, win it over, take it over, it would be a huge win for them. And I can't say that they have completely taken it over, but they've done a very fine job. Even someone say like John Paul II,
right,
who gets a lot of praise, and perhaps rightfully so, for being a key reason why communism eventually fell in Russia, and subsequently the whole of the Soviet Empire. John Paul II, he had a lot, he had a lot to do with, in fact, this whole idea of sort of giving a kind of a green light to the Catholic Church's embrace of this liberation theology. There's a famous statement that John Paul II put out sometime during the late 80s, when he pretty much was saying, hey, this is sort of like the new thing, the new way. Here's where the Catholic Church should go from this point forward. And so there's been a lot of things. Of course, there was the Second Vatican Council, which caused a bit of a schism within the Catholic Church, because when you there's I forgot there what is the it was called what is the name of that document that came out of the Second Vatican Council? I could if I could give myself a second, I could think of it. But SB something. Geez, I don't speak Latin, but anyway, but there's a document that came out, and a lot of Catholics were sort of taken aback because the Catholic Church seemed to be softening its stance on the social justice movements. And that gave many, and again, I think the conspiracy had been in the works within the Catholic Church for a very long time, but I think the Second Vatican Council was the first, I guess, alarm, or the first signal that something in the Catholic Church was really beginning to change. A very prominent member of the Communist Party during his day, a man named Louis Baudins. Louis Baudins testified before the I think it was HUAC. I can't remember if it was the House of Representatives or if he testified before the Senate, but I think it was HUAC because this was in the 40s. Of course, Louis Baudins is he's either the father, because there were two, their brothers. It was Leonard and Louis. One of them is the father of another prominent communist who was a member of the SDS and went on to become a member of the Weather Underground. And she, her name was Kathy Baudin. And Kathy Baudin, she was a participant in the failed Brinks truck heist robbery that occurred in 1981.
Yeah.
As a part of the May 19 communist organization with former members of the Weather Underground and the Black Liberation Army led by Mutulu Shakur, who was the father of Tupac Shakur's half-sister, mastermind this plan to rob this armored truck. And she was part of that conspiracy, and then she was caught, charged, found guilty. I think she was eventually pardoned by Bill Clinton. But
wow,
she had a child, and her child's name was Chessa Baudin, And that name may set off some alarm bells. If you remember, Chesa Boudin is the former district attorney in the District of San Francisco.
Yeah.
Chesa Boudin was
Yeah.
raised when she went to prison. She gave up Chesa and gave him up for adoption, essentially. And Chesa was raised by none other than Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn. So
I only know this because I remember you talking about this on Cutting Through the Culture. Like,
I just had to give that background and the interesting, I forgot the term they use. Remember, I talked about this in Cutting Through the Culture as well. I forgot the name of those, those homes they use on sitcoms.
yeah, the brownstones.
Brownstone. So in the cut scene on the
Listen
Cosby,
to this, y'all. I already know this story.
yeah, the Cosby Show home. On the cutout, when you cut and it shows this is where they're supposed to live, the exterior of the home. That was the literal childhood home of Kathy Boudin.
That's so crazy.
Very strange coincidence. But Louis Boudin testified in 1946, and he said that the communists sought to wage a war against the Catholic Church on the basis that if they could infiltrate the Catholic Church, they could destroy all religion. Because the Catholic Church, for whatever reason, they believed that that was sort of like the head of the snake. Because as I said, the Catholic Church was a major thorn in the side of the Communist Party for a very long time. That's what it is. Gaudium et spes was, and it means Gaudium, and I forgot what it means in Latin, but that's the document that came out of the Second Vatican Council. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Gaudium et spes.
Okay.
It means love and something. It has a very kind of like, what these
justice. Was it like love and justice
love
or
and something like that? Yeah.
Okay.
One of these really liberal kind of sounding terms. They're like, man,
yeah.
and so that kind of gave the impetus for a lot, I think what I believe to be a lot of sleeper cells within the Catholic Church, particularly in Latin America, because the Soviet Union saw Latin America as a key entryway because they wanted to begin encircling the United States.
Right.
So a lot of these communist revolutions that began to happen, first, of course, famously, it was Cuba. And then Cuba became a major staging ground, and many communists the world over, particularly in that part of the world, were actually trained in the tactics of revolution in Cuba proper. But I believe that the Cuban Revolution and other Marxist-inspired revolutions that occurred in Latin America would not have been possible had it not been for the left-wing clergy in all of these countries.
I feel like I read recently that one of these Black power people was going to Cuba to help do that, to help train or
yeah. Well, Stokely Carmichael visited Cuba.
Okay.
Cuban revolutionaries would actually go to Mexico. I forgot, there was a city in Mexico, an area in Mexico that was under heavy surveillance by Mexican intelligence, and the army general at the time, because the army did surveillance as well, not just FBI, CIA. The army has their own intelligence apparatus, and I forget the army officer's name who had direct contact with Mexican intelligence, and this individual communicated this information to J. Edgar Hoover as well. As a matter of fact, I mentioned this. I brought this information to Chad when we were filming the MLK project, and there's a moment in the MLK project in one of the episodes where I talk about this, where according to Mexican intelligence, there were Black radicals in Mexico that were being trained by Cuban revolutionaries. And right, it is no doubt, it's no secret that Cuba has always been like a famous hideaway, a famous getaway spot for a lot of these radicals. More so specifically, start beginning with a man named Robert Williams. I don't know if you've heard of Robert Williams, but talk about him maybe later. He was a member of the NAACP. He was the head of the North Carolina branch of the NAACP. He's a very interesting figure within the Black Power movement, because it was his ideas that sparked this sparked the notion that or the tactic, if we will, the strategy that blacks needed to begin to pick up arms. And he was subsequently chased out of the NAACP, and he fled to Cuba in an attempt to evade a kidnapping charge. And there's a whole thing, and he had these radio broadcasts called Free Dixie Radio that he would broadcast from mainland Cuba into the United States. He will
That might be that might be him that I was reading about, because I do remember North Carolina. That sounds familiar. I've been reading. It's so many names. It's like so many people that you have to keep straight, and I just can't.
Right.
But I remember certain details.
But in night, real quick, if I can, just to like speak on the Catholic Church, I just want to make sure I land this plane. Like I said, when Gaudium et Spes came out and was published, they were like, "Oh shoot, it's on now." And I think there were two main conferences in Latin America, one in Peru, but there was the famous conference of Latin priests in Medellin, Colombia. And I want to, was it 50? No, was it 56? I could be totally off with the year, but you can look up the Liberation Theology Conference in Colombia, Medellin, Colombia. And they were like, okay, cool, this is what we're doing now, right? And but this had been a long journey. As a matter of fact, Manning Johnson, I'll go to Manning Johnson. Many of you are familiar with Manning Johnson. He had an analogy. He called it the neck of the funnel. He testified before Congress in the 1950s, and he said that what communists would do is they would. It's not about taking a mass of people and converting them simultaneously. He said communists strategically place themselves at the neck of the funnel. And what does that mean? You must put communists in the position to be the person to teach the priests and train the priests, not the priests as a whole, but you take over seminaries. You take over the church by taking over the seminaries. Be the person that recruits and trains the priests, and then indoctrinate them by convincing them that this is the true gospel, and so therefore they're never the wiser.
Were you listening earlier when I was reading the Gerard Wilmore guy?
Yeah.
Did you hear that part that he's like, he basically just said literally the same thing. Hold on, let me find it. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you. I know you said you were about to pull something up. I just wanted to give you a name. I wanted you to pull up this name and see what you can get on this person.
Okay.
His name is Alighiero. It's spelled weird. ALIGHIERO. Tundi. TONDI. I believe that's how you spell his name.
The Rationalist. What am I looking for? Just like Wikipedia?
Yeah, you can Wikipedia it or whatever. Just see what comes to the top of Google. I'm curious.
Okay, this is in not English. What is this?
Can't do nothing with that.
Can't do nothing with that. They don't have a translate here button. Good. Okay, that's weird. Let's see. Hold on. I'm gonna put it on the stage, and then you can come on now. Where's my that's not what I wanted. Why is it not showing?
I'll just say,
okay,
the reason why I wanted you to pull him up, because this was a big deal back in the 50s.
This one.
Yeah. So Alighiero Tundi, he was a man. He was a Jesuit priest, and he became a Soviet agent, and he was very close with Pope John Paul VI. He's very close to the Pope. And he turned out to be a Soviet agent. He started out, as a priest, and I don't know, he lost his faith, became wayward, becoming a mold for the Soviet Union. And Life magazine published an article in 1952 on Alighiero Tundi, and the title of the article was "Priest Goes Communist." And he wasn't a one-off situation. I mean, there were not hundreds, but I believe thousands of Soviet sympathizers and maybe hundreds of just outright Soviet agents within the Catholic Church at the time. And I don't know if those figures have changed much. Perhaps these people are handmaidens of the CCP as of today, but I don't think anything has changed much. I don't know if anybody who studied communism is probably familiar with the great Archbishop Fulton Sheen. Fulton Sheen was one of the most outspoken anti-communists of the 20th century as a Catholic priest, and he gave a speech to the Vatican in 1952 because he was made aware, because we talked about Bella Dodd before. Bella Dodd, she was a big time, probably Bella Dodd during her heyday within the Communist Party. Bella Dodd was probably the most powerful, at least female communist in the country. And the work she did throughout the 1940s when it came to the teachers unions in New York, I mean, she did a number on us. And but she eventually changed her mind, became disillusioned, turned herself back over to God. She sought out Fulton Sheen and said she wanted to come back to Christ and give up her way. She realized that the communist movement was evil, it was wicked. She said that she testified before Congress saying that the communist movement was led by Lucifer. Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I know she testified, but I didn't know she said that.
Yeah, she said that this movement is, because they asked her, they said, well, who you say this is conspiracy? Who's leading this? Who's behind this? And she said that, I'm paraphrasing her, she said that there's no other way to describe it. It's if I had to be honest, I would say it's led by Lucifer. And so she sought out Fulton Sheen. She repented, and eventually, she accepted communion. And she also told him that not only was she responsible for implanting a communist presence within teachers unions, but she said that another part of her main agenda, the orders that she was given from the Communist Party, was to infiltrate Catholic seminaries. And she said that there are probably thousands of priests that she knows of that she is responsible for implanting in the Catholic Church. And Fulton Sheen,
I had her book right close by. William, this is I think William. School of Darkness is her book.
Right. And when Fulton Sheen gave a speech in 1952 to the Vatican, saying that there were red agents that have been implanted within our churches, and news of Fulton Sheen's article got back to the American media, and the New York Times published an article about it, much trying to deny it and say that Fulton Sheen was spreading lies and he was crazy and that he didn't know what he was talking about. So yeah, there's that. And that one, I'm sorry, Quisha. One last point. I know a lot of people are probably familiar with, of course, Senator Joe McCarthy, the senator from Wisconsin, right? Hence where we get the word McCarthyism. Totally different conversation. McCarthy has been treated very poorly by the historical record. He was right. A lot of people don't know what actually took place there. But again, I won't go into those details. But a huge part of what really came back to bite McCarthy was there was another former communist who was on the he was part of the federal government's investigative team. He was part of congressional and investigative team into communist activity in America. His name was J.B. Matthews. Okay. And the year I think was 1953. You can pull this up, and if you like, you can show it to your audience. J.B. Matthews wrote an article that was published in a magazine called The Mercury, the title of which was Reds in Our Churches by J.B. Matthews.
You've
Reds
been holding out on
in our
me.
churches. You
What?
go, I'm sorry. Go ahead. See if you could pull up and see if maybe the
Wait,
internet.
why you ain't never told me this before? He had this. He what is the book called?
It's Reds in
Oh,
Our Churches. That's the name of the
okay, let me see.
article that he wrote.
Heads in our- You probably actually did tell me this, honestly. Reds in our churches. Oh man, y'all. We got I don't know why. I love reading their own writings.
All right.
I, it's like because people like to argue with you, but you can't argue with them. You know what I mean?
All right.
Reds
You can argue with
and
them, right?
our
Exactly.
churches.
Yeah. Yeah, you say you can't argue with them. And if you see the largest single group supporting the communist apparatus in the United States today is composed of Protestant clergymen. So
We're
at this-
on to something, everybody. We're on to something.
So at this time, J.B. Matthews is no longer a part of the Communist Party. J.B. Matthews was a minister himself. So he knows firsthand. At this time, he had been a key source of the governments because they would go to J.B. Matthews to get intel. By this time, the Republican Party had seized the majority control over the Senate. So McCarthy was in full control of the committee tasked with investigating communist penetration into the United States. And J.B. Matthews became his go-to guy for information. So when this article was published, it rocked the country. Now, Senator Joe McCarthy, if you can't pick up from his name, Joe McCarthy is of Irish background, of Irish heritage. And so he's Catholic. So when this article came out, what the left did, and they, of course, they don't care anything about religion at all, but they'll play this game and they'll use religion whenever they can.
Right.
Just like now, Trump, they didn't support the war, I mean, but now all of a sudden, Trump surrenders and Trump back to say, "I didn't want to embarrass him." Trump shouldn't have attacked, but then now that this quote unquote peace deal has been reached, and all of a sudden now they still try. So anyway, so they couldn't have cared less about the church, but then they tried to accuse Joe McCarthy of using J.B. Matthews to disseminate anti-Protestant propaganda. And so what they did was they spent it and turned it around and got Protestants upset and frustrated because, oh, there go those Catholics again talking crap about the Protestant church. Mind you, but J.B. Matthews was a Methodist minister, but because J.B. Matthews was Joe McCarthy's right-hand man, they used that to attack both Joe McCarthy and J.B. Matthews to say that what J.B. Matthews saying here is not true. He's simply harboring anti-Protestant bias because he's doing the bidding of a Catholic bigot in Joe McCarthy. But you can read that article. It's very, very, very illuminating.
Oh, I can't wait to dig into it.
And I saw that ridiculous question you just asked. Is communism worse than capitalism?
Well, I would say
is water wet?
Well, but here's the thing though. So capitalism is Karl Marx's term of when Karl Marx talked about capitalism, do you think that he explained it in an accurate way of the free market system?
I mean, he did. Marx, he had somewhat of an economic. You really have to read Das Kapital. Of course, there are 3 volumes. He only lived to see the first volume published. The second volume and volume 3, I think, was published. Supposedly, it was Marx's work. Simply, it was Marx's work that Engels had compiled posthumously, or if you can, it's Owens posthumously. And the second 2 volumes were released. But Karl Marx, and he was given funding and money, front money to put out his economic treatise. And it took Karl Marx, I think the number was 16 years to write it, because Marx didn't know anything about economics. He virtually lied. He said, yeah, I can do that.
Mm.
And, he kept
Yeah.
putting it off. Just wait, it's coming. And it took him 16 years to write it, because he had to try to go and run around and scramble to try to learn something about economics first before he could even write a book.
Yeah.
It took him about 16 years, but he had somewhat of an economic understanding, or so he thought, even though his economic understanding was completely false, was completely ridiculous. But Marx's thing was, and if you go back to the Communist Manifesto, there's a line in the Communist Manifesto that's very, very illuminating, because what Karl Marx says, and this gives you an insight into what his belief or what his conception of capitalism is. Again, capital itself is a type of property, okay? And
Right.
an ism is an ideology that gives justification to why capital is so sacrosanct,
Right.
because it benefits the people who actually have it. Because capital is used as a means to reinvest in one's business. So of course the business grows, and then as the business grows, the schism between the rich and the poor gets greater and greater. It's just this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But Marx says in the Communist Manifesto, there's a line, he says that we support all movements that are against the status quo. If you need to know anything about what the communism means and what it is, and what capitalism is, capitalism represents anything that is attached to the quote unquote status quo. So anytime, and this is why Marxism always, because anytime a society becomes stable, what you must do in order to stabilize society, you must erect a hierarchy, not just a hierarchy of people, but you must create a hierarchy of values. Because if there's going to be social cohesion, people have to know what sort of values must I cultivate in order to be rewarded from other individuals within the hierarchy, so that I can ascend throughout the ranks of the hierarchy. In other words, what are some of the things we value? We value strength, we value courage, kindness, if you have a good sense of humor, if you can make people laugh, if you're loving, if you're committed, if you're trustworthy, if you're
orderly.
Right, if you're orderly,
in order.
if you're a good athlete, we reward people for their looks, people who are good looking. Shout out to the ladies in the comment section, such as
shout out to Michelle, okay?
Shout out to my wife, people who are good looking, so there's a hierarchy of values. And once society becomes stable, what communists are dead set against is any form of hierarchy. And here's the thing that they focus on. Here's the thing that they harp on the most. They harp on the fact that hierarchies are oppressive. Hierarchies can be oppressive, but hierarchies also serve a function that can be very healthy, very utilitarian, and very useful, because that's what human beings desire. We desire order, and conformity and predictability is what we desire. So whenever society becomes stable, communists start looking for margin. They start looking for people who are marginalized. They start looking for people who are right. And so that's why it progressively gets weirder and weirder. Like, wait a minute, what we're talking about? We're talking about body positivity and differently abled, and the transhumanism. Now it's getting so how in the world did we get here? Well, that's what leftism does, because leftism is all about revolution, because it seeks to reach a moment in human history when there is no need for a hierarchy.
Gavin ES80, I would absolutely love for you to call in. You seem like the type of person I want to talk to. He says, looking at the suffering of the masses, why would the status quo be desirable?
Well,
Now,
go ahead, Keisha. You want to address
I
the
mean,
reference?
that is such a subjective statement because who is looking at the suffering? What do you define as suffering? And how many people exactly are we talking about as far as masses would be? What we would consider a mass of people, and how do you define status quo? There's a lot of ambiguity. I know you think that's a straightforward question, but it's really not.
No, it's not.
It's a lot of subjective. You're doing a lot of assumptions in that statement. But
Right.
fair question. You're the type of person I like to talk to.
Yeah, I
But
don't.
if you don't want to call in, Chuck, why? If we looking at the suffering, this is a difficult thing to answer with no definitions. But let's just go off your own.
I got it.
Okay, looking at the suffering of the masses, why would the status quo be desirable?
Well, I think you raised a good question. So what are you talking about? As I said before, there have always been systems. Human beings organize themselves organically into systems, and so at every historical epoch, Gavin, there is going to be what I would refer to and what you would rightfully refer to as a status quo. Okay. So like Keisha, she posed the question, or so it sort of begs the question, okay, what exactly are you talking about? Because here's the thing, I don't know what sort of historical reference points you have, but let me enlighten you on something. Human beings have always suffered immensely. We've always suffered immensely. I don't think you understand that. I mean, for goodness sake, barely a half century ago, buildings and homes had to be, retrofitted with climate control. Could you imagine living today without air conditioning? I mean, just something as simple as that. I mean, some of us would go insane if we did not have central cooling. Especially, Keisha, you're in Florida. I can only imagine what Floridians did prior to the advent of central cooling and air conditioning.
And like being in Florida and pregnant. Ooh, listen, in the summertime, you want innovation.
Right. So this is kind of pivot back to Keisha. Keisha is the resident apologist on the channel. Her apologetics are way better than mine. And I think she can speak to this probably better than I can. But this is why the gospel is so important, and this is why spirituality and belief in God is so important. So that there is no, because to exist is to be burdened, because the human condition in and of itself is a tragedy. So when you say the masses are miserable, like I said, I don't know what kind of historical knowledge that you have, but human beings as of right now was in terms of material comfort, right? Being miserable is a state of mind. Right, and it is about to kind of go back to someone say like Augustine, right? It's kind of like this Augustinian sort of a thing where Augustine talked about no matter how one's external conditions are, one can be a slave physically and still be free if he, with the assistance of God, has conditioned himself to tame his own passions. Because you may be free externally, but you could be a slave to sexual addiction.
Come on now.
To gambling. You could be a slave to alcohol and to drugs and to sexual promiscuity. And you could be a slave to all sorts of things. So what does it even mean to
be a slave to your race?
What does it even mean to be quote unquote free in this lifetime? Because we have more choices, more liberties, more freedoms than we've ever had. But according to some sociological studies and psychological research and data, that many are miserable people are more miserable than they've ever been.
Yeah.
And so again, that's why Quisha asked you this question. These are very, very specific and very particular questions. But in terms of longer lifespans, better hygiene, better medicine. Like I said, we live longer. We don't suffer from the same amount of diseases. Hunger, women don't die in childbirth,
Right.
infant mortality. I mean, there are a lot of stats and data and matrices that we look at, or matrices that we look at, that speaks to how the human condition has improved mightily. And I'm not talking thousands of years. I'm talking about if you go back 100, 150 years before, say, we talked about air conditioning, or before the advent of refrigeration. When you went to the local market and brought your food home, you had to eat it immediately. I mean, back in the 20s and 30s, people were eating rotten meat, soiled vegetables, and so on, because not everyone had refrigeration in their homes. This is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. And this is white people, black people, brown people, all people suffered in this manner. There are certain diseases that we don't even talk about anymore, from polio to scurvy, cholera. These diseases are things that are only found, if even there, in the most remote parts of the world, what still considered to be quote unquote third world or underdeveloped. But bruh, we are the most luxurious, richest, wealthiest people in human history. So when you talk about suffering and for the mass, I have no idea what you could possibly be talking about. There's no telling how much money's worth of clothing you have in your closet. The wealthiest people from 50, 60 years ago would probably faint if they saw the level of technology that was placed into your automobile.
Okay.
I mean, the infrastructure that houses you, I mean, all sorts of things. So I don't know what suffering I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh no. So Gavin says the prior economic systems to capitalism resulted in the poor living conditions of most of Europe when Marx created his theories. Are you sure about that?
Not
Are
true.
you sure about that, Gavin? Like, what is your evidence that
Not
prior to economic systems to capitalism, Chuck, you are freezing up.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
But it is 11.
We're gonna get up out of here. Gavin,
Yeah.
you'll be a good candidate to come up on a show. I
Yes.
don't know if you want to. If not, you can put questions in the comment section and we'll try to address them. But my good friend here, Quisha, doesn't want a bunch of people who just wants to put comments and not come up, because it's better to just talk than have to keep reading your comments. And it'd be
He
better
did
for
say he
you.
would come up, but he's at work and it's a lot of background noise. So I appreciate that.
Okay.
But like I said, we're here Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So hopefully you can come up Wednesday or Friday.
And it just goes to show, Quisha, that he doesn't know what he's talking about, because capitalism is not an economic system, and capitalism is not why the peoples of Western Europe were poor. As a matter of fact, relatively speaking, at that particular time, the peoples of Western Europe were the wealthiest in the world. Okay, not only that, but Marx prophesied that it would be countries like Britain and Germany that would go into the next phase of the dialectical process first, because according to Karl Marx, each economic innovation begets its own extermination. And so therefore, seeing as how Britain and Germany were further along, they would reach the next phase first. But of course, that didn't happen. It turned out to be Russia and not Great Britain and not Germany.
None of what Marx prophesied came to be, like none. Like, I don't know one thing that he said would happen that actually happened. I'm not familiar. I don't know anything that he said happened. Not as far as like his own prediction of like the whole bourgeoisie and proletariat, that whole thing, and how they was gonna, that didn't even work in his own time. His own students of his of his beliefs, they went on to create a cultural revolution, because the economic one didn't even work. He knew nothing. He did not know that. He didn't know that. He himself was a wealthy man. He
exactly.
himself was among the elite, as they
And,
typically always
and
are.
didn't work. He could have been, but he didn't work. He squandered a lot of his earning. Well, not well. I guess it's fair to call it earnings. But he lived off of what the wealth of Ingalls and the wealth of his own family. But yeah, Keisha, and I'll just say last thing, and I'll let you probably close out just to
Mhm.
Gavin. The thing is that no matter what era you're in, no matter what time in history that you're in, there will always be social stratification. Once upon a time, prior to uh, Christians or Catholics, if you want to be more specific, when they came here. And Keisha, one thing too, as far as the indigenous populations, Catholicism versus Protestantism, of course, Protestantism was a lot more liberal in a sense that Catholics didn't mind, in the spiritual systems of the indigenous peoples sanctifying or canonizing their own deities into the Catholic pantheon, because it made it a lot easier for indigenous Americans, Native Americans, or whatever you want to go, Indians, whatever,
Mhm. Mhm.
politically incorrect. It made it easier for them to convert, because Catholics oftentimes didn't mind if they practiced their own or kept their own gods or kept their own deities, but they just had to sort of worship them in a Catholicized or worship them in a Catholic sort of way. And this at times again caused some conflicts within and debates within the Catholic Church. But many of the deities of the natives, and you and I, we've talked about in the past the cultural symbiosis, if you will, as far as Catholicism and some of the ancient or traditional African spiritual systems that gave
Oh yeah.
rise to hoodoo and voodoo and
Mhm.
Santeria and things of this nature, that kind of has that tinge of Catholicism to it, the kind of blending of the two. And so it's a little bit different there. And maybe to go back to Megan's question, that's probably why even you may not have a lot of Black pushback against Catholicism, historically speaking, because a lot of the African folklore and African mythological traditions were allowed to still be practiced under the watchful eye of the Catholic authorities.
Hmm.
But last
Well, there
thing
you go,
to
Megan.
yeah,
That I see that also.
yeah. So
Yeah.
Gavin, no matter what era, Gavin, no matter where you go, no matter what there always going to be social stratification. There's always going to be those who are higher up as far as social prestige for various reasons that are lower. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? In the Aztec Empire, the chieftains in the Aztec Empire, in order to cure their own diseases, sometimes they would offer up their own children to be sacrificed to the gods. And this was
Yeah.
a way that they could boost their social prestige if they would give up their children to be sacrificed, because they wanted more power and more earthly treasures and riches and control and influence and these kinds of things. This is the sort of stuff that was going on in the Catholic, during the days of the Aztecs,
Mm.
before, whatever. So I'm just saying, and while the Spaniards were here, they were still doing this.
Mhm.
I'm just saying. And so Marx had a vision that inequality would soon be phased out once human beings have gotten through these phases. The idea that Karl Marx had was that we had to reach communism when people would no longer be unequal. Now, if
Mhm.
you think that that is even remotely possible, then I have some beachfront property I want to sell you in Montana. I don't even know if I want to talk to you if you even think something like that.
Well, maybe he doesn't know. I think, sometimes you grow up and you only hear one side of a narrative. You never really get a cohesive, opposition to that. And so you just end up believing that one thing. And unfortunately, too many people don't actually go in and say, well, why do so many of these other people seem to lean towards the free market system or something like that? So I would encourage everybody to even when you hear us talk, like, go and read these things for yourself, and then go and read what people said, against this. And of course, send all of this stuff to the Lord, like, fact check it with Jesus. Like, please do. And I want to say this to Gavin. I don't know if you are a Christian or not, but the Bible tells us that the poor, I don't know the scripture, but this is a quote. I don't know the scripture number. The poor will always be with you. So Jesus tells us straight up and down, the poor, they're always going to be poor people. So even when the God who created everything tells us, because of the fall of man, there will always be poor people. That tells you that we have our own individual lots in life, our own individual roads to travel. And so just if I work hard and the person next to me does not, and their situation is totally different, and they don't go out and create, and well, in this country we get to do that. We can go and create wealth. Who's to blame? You know what I'm saying? All things being equal, who, except for work ethic, who's to blame? You're always going to have inequities as far as everything. Like, it's never going to be like just this equal thing across the board, except for zero. That's the only thing that you will get equal. Nobody having nothing, or everybody having nothing, I should say. But
capitalism, what do you say? Is communism worse than capitalism, man? Go and read Harvard University Press's book, the Black Book of Communism, and then you come back and tell me what you find. Ask me that question again. Is it worse? Is it worse? Okay.
yeah.
We got well over 100 years of history and hundreds of millions of souls lost. And that's not counting the unborn as a result of China's one-child policy.
Listen, it's not something, communism, dangerous.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely dangerous. All right, you guys. Well, hello, Carmen. Chuck, I'm going to go ahead and drop you down. Thanks so much. Hopefully you can be back on Wednesday.
Yeah, right now.
All right, see you. Thank you. All right, you guys. Carmen, what's up, girl? How are you? One Cup, Two Bears. Hello. Hi, Juju B. S Files. Hi, SP Flash. Let's see. Who else is new that I did not say hi to? Well, Gavin, I really do. The S Files. Hello. I really do hope you can join on Wednesday or Friday. We'll be back at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you guys found this helpful. I put some resources there in the chat. I hope you guys got a chance to copy that and go and take a look. Go and take a look at it. Let's see. So we're going to be continuing this this strain of, really digging into how this, how the Black church became what it is, how it became this leftist, Marxist, non-biblical, anti-Christ Frankenstein of a church. We're going to keep digging into this because the goal is souls, and it's a lot of souls in these quote unquote Black churches. And that's the goal, to reach these people, to tear the idol down, the Black idol, the Blackness idol, the race idolatry deity will come down in Jesus' name. So thank you guys for watching. Hey, DT. Oh, I didn't say hi to DT. Hey, thank you for being here. S. Rainey, before it goes, says even the Chinese had to adjust to some form of capitalism. Indeed. Let's see. Thanks, Megan. She says that's what Marxism kind of is. You will have nothing and be grateful for it. Okay. You won't, but you won't have a choice. So then, yes, you will be grateful for it because they'll put a gun to your head and tell you that you better. Okay. They don't play nice. All right. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you Wednesday. And we will continue. We'll continue the good fight of faith. All right, you guys. Love you for watching. Bye.